Hey everybody, happy hump day. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining me for the first of this week's Lunchtime Live broadcasts. I've been a bit remiss. I did say last Friday that I wasn't sure whether I'd be doing any more of these, but decided that I will do one today, simply because, really the mood has struck me that I want to talk about joy and bliss in particular. Hence the reason why I posted the question this morning on my Facebook page. What can you choose to do today to bring you bliss, right? And bliss is really being extremely happy or joyful. Is it perfectly happy? Is it perfectly joyful? I don't know. Is anything ever perfect? There are perfectly imperfect moments that we share, that we have. Every sunset is perfect. Every sunrise is perfect, right? So yeah, I think that bliss and joy are things that we can choose, right? We choose to be joyful in our approach to to what it is that we do, how we behave, how we respond to what it is that we as humans want to achieve. Sorry. And we choose to either be happy with our choices, or we choose to be unhappy with our choices. I put a post out today saying that I would choose to be on the beach with someone that I love. Now that could be my current girlfriend, it could be my late wife, it could be my children, it could be my dog. There's any number of people that just being in that moment, being on the beach, doing something that I truly enjoy with someone that I really want to be with, that is blissful. To me, that would bring me such bliss today that I would love to have been able to do that. Unfortunately, I can't, and I'm not, and I'm unable to do that. So I've chosen not to. Chosen not to take that risk of driving out to the beach and finding that it's still closed or whatever. So that was my choice for what would bring me bliss today. There's all sorts of things that we can do. Movement, for instance, and movement with with breath, yoga, mindfulness, sort of our ability to express ourselves in ways that are sort of non-verbal, but through movement, dance, that sort of thing. That can be blissful, can be joyful. We could create moments that our bodies sense a feeling of such tremendous sort of elation in terms of just getting out in the sunshine and moving around, walking around, taking a 45-minute break during the day to just go for a walk, for instance. That can bring us joy. It can bring us some degree of bliss in our lives. Because just being outside, just being in the open, in the fresh air, oftentimes gets our blood circulating, our breath becomes more full. There's a reason why oftentimes when we go out to someplace like the beach or into the mountains or wherever natural beauty spots, the first thing that we do is we stop and we take a big deep breath. All that fresh air around us, that sort of sense that we're communing with nature, with our true nature, right? That's part of what brings us bliss, right? That's part of what brings us joy as human beings. And blissfulness is extreme happiness, extreme joy, right? It's what can bring us into that moment, into that sense of we're truly alive in this moment, and everything is okay with us. And that's the good thing about is bliss and joy and happiness is that it kind of brings us into the moment, right? It's a gift that we give ourselves, is our own happiness and our own joy, and what I describe as extreme happiness or joy, which is blissfulness. And like I said a moment ago, thank you, Patty. No, it's okay. I appreciate that. I did say that I have been busy this last couple of days. I wasn't sure whether I was going to do these anymore, because rules have been relaxed and people are going back to work and such. But if I don't do them daily, if I don't do my talks daily, I will certainly be doing them weekly. I will pick a day, maybe a Wednesday, because it's kind of that, that hump day where we're not quite there, for the whole of the weekend, but we're not quite there, to get into the next weekend. So, we're kind of halfway through the week here. And to me, that's a really critical juncture in our working week and our lives, is that sort of, we're kind of on the fence. We're not quite, Monday, but we're not quite Friday, right? So having that opportunity to to do this and to interact with people, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you inputting as well into my post this morning about what makes you happy and blissful. So so welcome back and thank you for joining me. And like I say, these this is. This to me is, actually brings me some degree of bliss, interacting with other people and presenting my own, sort of thoughts on these subjects. And I do appreciate, that you interact and that you are there for me, really, because it brings me joy. It does, knowing that there is this connection here between us. And that we're able to interact and we're able to to connect on these topics, and yes, bliss is one of these things that is really elusive for a lot of people, and in particular those of us who are grieving, and right now I feel like these last 6-8 weeks have been really, really difficult to find any semblance of joy or bliss in our day-to-day existence because of the circumstances around COVID-19 and sheltering in place, quarantining, and all of that sort of stuff. And I think a lot of people have struggled to find any degree of joy or semblance of happiness in these times of uncertainty and chaos and God, we don't know what's going to happen next, or we don't know whether we're going to survive as a society, or will society and the economy collapse, or all of this stuff, right? There's all these great big question marks hanging over our head, but like I said, maybe a couple of weeks ago in one of my talks, I talked about being outside of my chair out sitting in the sun and saying to myself, well, I'd really love to be able to do this every day. And then in that moment, realizing that I was doing it then. It was that moment, right? That was the only moment that existed at that, and I was doing what I wanted to do. So just realizing that right then, in that moment, I was doing exactly what I wanted to do and what brought me peace and happiness and joy. That was a moment of bliss for me, right? And it's, like I say, it's those simplest little things sometimes that when we allow our mind to open to the realization that in this very moment, I'm okay. And in this very moment, I am connected with, you out there. I am here. I am able to have these conversations with you and talk about these subjects and these things that have meaning to me and I hope resonate with you. that that's really a moment of bliss for me. It's a moment of joy, just to connect and to be part of, you know, this greater sort of existence that we're in, which, you know, let's be fair, we don't always understand what's going on, right? We don't have to have all the answers. In fact, I think the more that we realize that we don't know, we don't have all the answers, um, that that's actually what makes us happier, right? Just allowing the universe and, you know, or God or whatever you want to call it, to, you know, to unfold what that greater plan is in, you know, in universal time, right? You know, we as energetic beings are boundless and timeless, and you know, yes, we're in these meat suit avatars for a limited time, but our, you know, our souls, whatever you want to call it, our energy, our spirit, um, you know, is here. It's, you know, it's part of us. It's that spark of life within us that remains regardless of whether our, you know, our bodies are still alive or not. And knowing that there's so much that we don't know about, you know, the broader universe, the world, the you know, the meaning, as it were, um, you know, makes it easier, I think, to be happier. You know, they, what's that old saying? Ignorance is bliss, right? And ignorance isn't a negative thing, right? Ignorance is, you know, is knowing that we don't know, right? That's what ignorance is. Being ignorant of some sort of, you know, concept or idea or knowledge is okay, right? It's okay to not know something, right? Um, and I think we often confuse ignorance with stupidity, right? Um, Stupidity is willful ignorance, right? It's a willful disregard for, um, you know, knowledge, right? That's a choice, right? Ignorance is not a choice. Ignorance is just not knowing, right? I'm ignorant of what the greater, you know, universe has in store for me, for my children, for the world, for you watching. It's, you know, being ignorant of what's truly out there is really blissful, right? Not knowing, right, what may happen tomorrow is really blissful. I don't have to worry about it, right? The universe will unfold in its own way, in its own time, right? So in effect, ignorance is bliss as a statement, right? Is actually very true. It's quite welcoming, and accept, if you accept that, right, that we are, you know, ignorant of what truly lies ahead of us, right? You know, what the next moment may bring. Um, if we accept that, if we accept that we, know nothing about the future, right? Then, then that can actually make us happier, right? We have to accept it, though. We have to be able to accept it. We have to choose to accept it. So that's where I think, being blissful, right? It's an adjective, right? We are extremely happy. We are full of joy, right? That's what blissful really means. Well, we can only reach that. We can only achieve that by accepting that, we don't know everything. We don't have as much control over external events, right? The only thing that we can control is our internal state, right? Our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, right? That is what can truly bring us bliss, right? If we accept that that is how the universe works, God works, whatever you want to, the higher power, whatever you may believe in, and whatever, spiritual beliefs you have, knowing that we know nothing, right, is truly, the blissful state that we can achieve. If we choose to do that, if we choose to accept that that's where we are and who we are. So from my perspective, that's what I think, achieving bliss is all about, right? And for me, there are moments, right? Like like going to the beach and just sitting there and watching the tides roll in, the waves crash in and go back out, and just watching that sort of process, that never-ending process, that means so very much to the earth, to our existence, but very little in terms of my own sort of, do I live and die by the waves? Do I live and die by the sort of noise that they make, or the amount of sand that they pull back out into the ocean, or whatever? No, I don't. But to me, right, just being able to sit and watch the mesmerizing sort of consistency and listen to the sounds of the waves crashing, and being there in that moment, maybe just sitting in the sand as the waves come in and go out and come in and go out incessantly, that is blissful to me. That is joyful to me. It brings me happiness to be able to experience it, and to be part of that, right? To know that even though it doesn't necessarily, right, rule my existence, and in some ways it does. The moon, and the sun, all have impacts on tides and things like that. And yes, a giant tsunami, earthquake offshore, and a giant tsunami could conceivably, wipe out cities. And so yes, it could very well be life and death with the waves. But, ultimately, me sitting on a beach and being in connection, in communion with that experience, right? That's what's blissful to me. So that's why I wrote in my post this morning, what would you choose to do today to bring you, bliss? And for me, like I said when I first started this talk, this afternoon, this lunchtime, being with my new girlfriend, or my daughters, or Suzanne. That would have been amazing, to just go and be on a beach today and just feel that sense of not just communion with nature, but communion with somebody that I love, right? In that moment. That's what truly would be blissful to me today. That's what I would choose to do if I had that choice to make. And yes, I do have that choice to make every day. I could go to that beach and sit there with myself, and be in communion with nature by myself, and still be very blissful and very happy. Yes, I would like to share that moment with somebody else, or something else. I mean, heck, even with my dog. It would be wonderful. But the reality is that, as a state, as a society right now, we're still kind of closed and unable to do a lot of those things. But hiking trails are now reopening, and public spaces like beaches are starting to reopen in California. So I'm actually quite pleased with that. It scares me a little bit, because I know that on beaches people tend to gather in close proximity to others, and I'm not sure that it's such a great thing. But the fact that it's out of doors, and there's less likelihood that that virus germs, spores, or whatever they call them, will spread and be spread very easily. That does it does instill some sort of degree of hope in me that we're moving in the right direction now. And yeah, and I sympathize and empathize with all of these small businesses and mom and pop places that are suffering as a result of the closures. And I have friends who are restaurateurs who are really struggling, right? They're struggling to feed their own families, let alone the people that want to purchase from their restaurants. So for me and to me, this is a seminal moment where we have a choice, a very stark choice to make. Do we carry on down this path of slowly reopening to try and prevent the spread of our virus, or do we help those people that need the most help? Small business owners, all of these people who are unemployed as a result of small businesses going, having to shutter for the whole of the shelter in place. Is it is it the right time? You know, I trust the medical experts. I think that they know what they're doing. I hope that they know what they're doing. They're just human beings after everything is said and done, right? And like I said here, just a few moments ago, we don't have all the answers, and in some scenarios, ignorance is bliss, right? And that's what this talk has been about. Is about how to achieve that and how to choose bliss, right? And how to become full of joy and happiness. And it is a choice, right? So if we choose to accept what is happening around us and what is going on in the world, and we choose to accept that our leaders, our medical people, they're all not none of them are infallible, right? They all make mistakes, and we just have to live with those mistakes. We have to live and learn, right? So maybe the timing is right. Maybe it is now that we need to reboot the economy and restart everything. And I had my moments like 2 weeks ago when I was had a huge wave of grief, and I was really scared and fearful that we were opening too fast and too soon, and that and I wasn't fearful for my own safety and my own health. I'm fearful for a greater society, our greater society, the elderly, the people who are more susceptible to or more prone to to becoming ill as a result of catching COVID-19. So I was scared for them, right? That was my fear. I'm not fearful for myself. Okay, I want to make that clear. But still felt that fear, and now that I've kind of moved past that, I've started to choose acceptance, right? And what it is that I accept is that we're all perfectly imperfect. We all make mistakes. Some of us make more mistakes than others, and we learn, right? Or at least we try to learn, right? So like I said a few moments ago, this ignorance is bliss in the sense that if we accept that we don't know everything, right, that we are ignorant of, say, the universal plan or God's plan or whatever it is for all of us, for Earth, for humanity, for our society, for whatever it is, right? If we accept that, and but we are grateful for what it is that we actually have, what it is that we actually feel, that we're able to be in this this seminal moment where we can accept a new reality, right? That things may change, right? Restaurants are no longer going to be jam packed with people, right? They're going to have some sort of social distancing. So will that make it more intimate, or will that make it more stressful for for a diner or for a restaurateur or for staff that are serving, right? I for one hope it'll make it more intimate and more sociable, in a sense that when you have a server come in and serve you in a restaurant, now that we have this social distancing, you'll have something to talk about. You'll have more sympathy, more empathy for that server, right? Knowing that person has spent the last 7 weeks without a job, right? They've not been able to be working. So, have some sympathy, have some empathy. Make that person's day brighter, make it more blissful for them and for you the next time you go to a restaurant, right? Enjoy those moments, enjoy being there and being in a connected sort of environment, right? My daughters, two of my daughters have been working as servers in restaurants and have both been laid off for the last 6-7 weeks, right? And as a result of that, when they do return to work, when they do go back to serving or doing whatever they end up doing as a result of this change in their lives, I hope that people appreciate their situations more. They take a little moment to kind of think more about what it is that they're receiving, as opposed to what they're taking from that, from that server, from that person that's working in the restaurant, or behind the counter of the Starbucks or wherever it is that they may be going to. So these things, by accepting and by understanding and by being more compassionate and kind, can bring us more joy and more peace and more bliss in our lives, right? Simply choosing to be more receptive and friendly to that server or to the person working in the supermarket. Every time that I have been to the supermarket in this last 7 weeks, right? Which initially the first couple of weeks was a lot more than it has been recently. In fact, the last time I went shopping was 2 weeks after the previous time I had been shopping. So literally was not leaving the house at all, practically. But every time that I've been in to a supermarket, I've thanked that individual who's checked me out, the person that's bagged my goods, right? I've thanked those people for working, just for being there, right? For taking their own health and safety risks, right? They didn't know whether or not they would be infected with COVID. They hadn't, in many cases, no choice whether to work, because they are essential workers, right? Those words, essential workers. But it's those people, right, who we should be grateful for, and we should be thankful that they've, been serving, us as a society while we've been experiencing this staying at home or sheltering in place. And to me, I hope that brings them some degree of joy and bliss in their own lives, knowing that they're appreciated by me, right, and by others, right? So that's kind of how I feel that we as as people can really develop and kind of grow as not just as humans, but as individuals, and how we can develop and trying to think of the word right now and it's escaping me. How we can harness our own bliss, right? How we can encourage our own sort of self to be happy, right? We can develop and grow as individuals just by being, or choosing to be, happy in a moment, right? Choosing a place that brings us joy and bliss and encourages us to to be more receptive to what it is that we're experiencing in the moment. So I'm coming up on my time. I perhaps may be back tomorrow. I'll post on my Facebook page or on my Calibri coaching page that whether or not I will be joining us again, tomorrow. I think I probably will. I do have a couple more topics that I'd like to talk about, maybe for the rest of this week. And like I said, maybe I'll change the cadence from daily to every couple of days or even weekly. If there's encouragement there, and there has been some, thank you, to continue doing these, then I will. And I'm hopeful that that as things sort of change and we open up more as a society, that that I won't be doing as many, but I hope that you'll still be able to join me when I do. So yes, very much very very much appreciative of your time, of you interacting and joining me, of sharing and being part of my tribe, my community. I very much appreciate all of you, and thank you. And watch this space. Keep an eye out for my posts, and hopefully, I will continue. Well, I will continue. Probably, join me tomorrow if you can, 12 noon Pacific Standard Time, for tomorrow's broadcast, and we'll see how we go from here in terms of cadence and timing and and number and frequency and all of that. But yeah, I will. I will be back tomorrow, and hopefully you'll be able to join me, and we'll spend some time together. Mike, it's really nice of you to join me. I really miss you, and I hope that that you and the kids and Jessica are doing okay. Thank you, and I appreciate it, and I love you guys all. Thank you for joining me. Hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care, everybody, and have a great rest of the hump day.